Gaza City campaign has begun. They're calling Gideon's Chariots 2, but it looks like tanks are already beginning to roll towards Gaza City. So what's going on? At the same time, it looks like there's some sort of ceasefire deal being talked about, and the Prime Minister is sending people now to Doha to hash out some deal for all the hostages at once. And at the same time, boom, tanks are rolling in, and they're already starting to attack certain neighborhoods. Warnings have gone out for the medical staff now to begin to evacuate down to the south, the medical staff in Gaza City. And they're hoping to move 850,000 residents of Gaza City southward towards the Rafiah area. So is there a war coming? Is the final end of the war coming? Or is there some sort of ceasefire deal in the making? Let's approach this in a few different ways. The first thing to understand is that something clearly clicked or changed in the Prime Minister's mind the second Hamas released the videos of hostages starving over a week and a half ago. Right? It was clearly a change. And we can kind of figure out what's going on. Right after that, there's a decision on the spot, right? That there's going to be no more staged deals here. No more halfway ceasefires. All or nothing, right? Everybody at once, or Gaza City goes down. So why? The Prime Minister has always been an advocate of staged deals. Why? Because he knows he has to defeat Hamas and get the hostages back. And he can't do everything at once. He has to get as many hostages at the same time, understanding that Hamas will not release all the hostages unless they stay in the Strip. So the fact is this, that Hamas now says, hey, we want that original deal, man. We want that 60-day deal. And the Prime Minister says, no, there's no deal. We want everybody back. That video was a mistake by Hamas. What Hamas wanted to do is scare us into capitulating to them for some sort of 60-day deal, right? That's what they wanted to do. They knew they were going to lose this battle, so they said, okay, fine, we'll give in to your demand, 60 days, 10 hostages, half the living hostages and half the already deceased hostages. And in the beginning, before those videos, the Prime Minister probably was going to go for it. He was probably going to go for the hostage deal, right? Those videos came out and it was very obvious most of the hostages that are still alive will not survive the 60 days, which means essentially the Prime Minister would be making a deal for half the living hostages, which would be scattered throughout the 60 days, and the other half basically would not make it. And that's just not unacceptable. So the Prime Minister said, listen, we're going to go forward. We're going to go forward and take over Gaza. And we understand the back and forth. Eventually there was an agreed upon way forward with the IDF General Staff. Not that everybody agrees with it, but this is what we have, that we're going to take over Gaza City. Why? Because Gaza City is the Berlin of Hamas. That's it. Boom, Berlin goes down, Nazis fall apart. The same idea here. Gaza City gets taken over, the symbol of jihadism across the world, which that's basically what it is. It's like the Raqqa, the way Raqqa was for ISIS, Gaza City is for Hamas. And by taking over Gaza City, smashing into the ground, boom, that's the end of the war. Like, obviously there's pockets left, and they control some of the center villages like Nuseirat and Deir Balach, right? But the essentially speaking, symbolically, that's really the end. That's the way the Prime Minister and the IDF Chief of Staff saw it or sees it. What Hamas did when they said, oh, no, we're willing to talk now for your deal, the deal a few weeks ago, that was the mistake. That is where the Prime Minister, right, Bibi smells blood finally. Finally, they're scared. The way forward now is a two-pronged approach. That's what it seems like. It seems that the military and the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister want to move forward as fast as possible, no longer wait until October till everybody's cleared out. It's very clear that they're going towards a September launch date, a full-fledged, takeover of Gaza. They already called up 60,000 reservists. But this initial movement forward, which they've already announced is the beginning of the next stage, is a pressure tactic. It's to show the Hamas that we're serious. We're willing to negotiate, but you have to give in on our terms. What the Prime Minister wants, if he can get it, is everybody released at once. Everybody released at once, and Hamas lay down their arms, right? What he said the other day, he wants Gaza to be fully demilitarized. Israel will be holding override security responsibility. A security zone which will be created on the border to prevent future attacks is a large security zone, not a half a kilometer, but 2 to 3 kilometers in. That's what the maps are showing. A civilian administration which will govern Gaza and seek peaceful relations with Israel. Not so clear what that means. There's a lot of push, push back from the right-wing camp here in Israel, rightfully so, by the way. That doesn't why put an Arab-controlled civil administration and return it right back to where it was before, but we'll leave that for another discussion. And then, like you said, hostages must be released and Hamas must surrender. These 5 points, that's what the Prime Minister has said, must be agreed upon in Qatar, and only then this operation can stop. The likelihood of these 5 points being agreed in Qatar, in Doha, with a negotiation team, is zero, right? But the point is the Prime Minister and the defense echelon, upper echelon, realizes now that the Hamas already folded on the Witkoff plan, which they weren't folding on before. They are fearful. They are fearful because Gaza City goes, and essentially, psychologically, they're done. It doesn't mean that we're not going to send troops into the other areas, the remaining a few percentage of Gaza where most of the hostages are being held. Right? Once again, Nuseirat, Deir Balak, we haven't gone into so much. That's not the IDF has barely functioned in those areas. So this plan that's going forward, this push towards the end, we understand is not universally agreed upon, even in the cabinet. But this is what we have, and this is what they're trying to do. It's kind of playing chicken with a terrorist group. Are they going to flinch or are we going to flinch? So far, Hamas assumed that the cabinet would flinch, like previous times. Oh, you want hostages back? Like I said, evil people make mistakes. And the mistake they made was releasing those videos. They thought that would weaken us and help and make us give in, and it's true. We wanted to give in. In a lot of ways, that was very, very scary what we saw. But the reality is, as you do the calculations, if most of the hostages that are alive that are like that, that means, like I said, half of them won't make it through. And that's what's driving the campaign right now. That's what's driving the pace of this campaign. That's why the Prime Minister has ordered the army to speed up the launch of this campaign, because he knows there's a time. We're losing time here. We're losing time. We must go in and we must force the end of this now. Now. Because if not, the rest of the hostages are going to starve and more soldiers are going to get killed, and we must go for the direct end. It's not going to be easy, right? This type of Islamo-Nazi group, Hamas, will fight to the end. Just like the Nazis did in Berlin. They would go out and shoot rockets at just random groups of soldiers. Even though they were losing the war, there was no surrender for them. They went down. Every man was fighting at the end. Every boy, every teenager in Nazi Germany in the Battle of Berlin. And they took out tons of, the Soviets were there, and they took out tons of Soviet troops and that were just fighting in alleyways and mazes and things like that. The same thing, God forbid, will be here. But the IDF has to plow forward, has to push forward with tremendous firepower now at the end, right? And maybe, just maybe, there'll be a few Hamas members that will say, hey, listen, I'll take exile, take the hostages. But that's what they're hoping for. Time is not on the hostages side, and we have to make a move now, right? And that does not mean capitulate to our enemies. That means stand firm, stand strong, and finish them off.